Hi, Model Chili here, and in this video I'm building Bandai's A-Wing Starfighter model kit in 1:72 scale, and it's a fairly recent kit, but I've had it sitting around here for the past few weeks, so I thought it was about time I should build it and get a video up. And as you can see, it's quite a simple kit. Basically these two sprues here make up the Starfighter. There's this grey sprue here is just the stand and a blaster tower that from the Death Star that helps to make up the stand. And there's another smaller sprue just for the cockpit pieces. So hopefully it'll be a nice, quick, simple build. And for reference, I'm going to be using this really old technical journal, which was a Starlog magazine special. Back in the UK, I bought this around about 1995, I think. It was the third of 3 specials they released, and this one was on the Rebel Forces. I do have the other 2 stashed away somewhere, but I can't quite remember what the topics were. The other one was Imperials, and there's another third one, which I'm sure I can look up later, but I've got some really nice fold out schematics, screenshots from the movie, information on all sorts really. And so what I'm using this for is the studio model photos of the A-Wing. Some really nice close-ups there. So I'll be using this for painting and weathering guide. And of course referring to Bandai's own painting guide, of course, is handy as ever. And this is the first Bandai kit I've made where the instructions also have English in them, whereas before it was just Japanese. So here we've got Japanese and English. So that's quite a nice addition to these instructions. I mean, I didn't really need them before because the instructions are so self-explanatory, but it's always nice to have a bit of English in it, just in case you miss something. So let's go ahead and start with the cockpit. Just a quick note on these new side cutters that I've bought the last couple of months. These Tamiya side cutters with the pointed tip at the end. They're really good for getting into sharp corners and angles with that point at the end. So if you need to cut, say like something in that corner there, you can get this right in there and poke it in, and you can shave off parts of sprue or just cut back other plastic pieces. And yeah, so I really recommend these if you're in the market for slide cutters. And Tamiya ones are pretty good quality. I mean, I've cut quite a few thick things with this and it hasn't started to give way yet, so it hopefully will last me quite a while. But yeah, so it's just a quick note on those. And it's pretty much the only tool I use when removing parts and then cleaning them up. So let's get some light on here. I can get pretty close to the plastic with these, right up close. Cut off the extra bits of sprue, and then I'll use a hobby knife just to clean it up if it needs a little bit more, but these are pretty much all I use as far as cutting and cleaning parts go. So to prime this model I'm going to be using Vallejo's black surface primer. So this will sort of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So once I use this I won't have to do a black base coat for the shading. And so that's one of the advantages. One of the disadvantages is that unlike Tamiya spray can primer, which I usually use, you can't really sand this or manipulate it much. Being acrylic, it just kind of peels back as soon as you start sanding it, so I won't be able to do any sanding. But as this is a Bandai kit, I'll know that I won't really need to do any sanding or filling with putty or anything, since the seams are pretty much all watertight anyway. For the whitish light grey parts, I'm going to be using Vallejo white grey, which I've used on quite a few of the Star Wars kits, so it's quite a useful colour. So for the red sections, I had to do a lot of experimenting to get the right shade of red, since a lot of the Vallejo Model Air colours that I've got, all their reds are quite yellowish, so I wasn't quite getting the right tone of red that I needed. So after a lot of experimenting, I just went out and bought a model colour, just basic red, which is a lot more cooler looking red, and of course I needed to thin that down to use an airbrush, but then I added 10 parts of that to 1 part dark sea grey, and that gave it the right tone and shade to get as close as I could get to the deepish brownish red. And it's coming out a lot brighter on the camera for some reason, but in person it's quite a nice dull, almost purplish red, which I think closely matches the reference photos. So once these parts go next to the white, the light grey parts, it should look like a closer match. Now to detail up the cockpit, I've just got a little bit of light grey on the end of a brush. And I've wiped away most of the excess as much as I can, and now I'm just going to dry brush some details on here. And it's going to start off fairly light, because it's always easier to add than it is to take away. So I'm just going to go in here and, well, it's a bit hard to see with the all being black, but just gradually bringing out some of this detail. This is quite a nice little feature that Bandai have included. These little cables that go into the back of the engine are separate moulded pieces. Now usually you'd have to scratch build things like this, so it's quite nice that they've included it as part of the kit. Okay, so the model has been given a gloss coat, just with a Tamiya clear spray. So now that's ready for decals and weathering. And just a quick note on the scale of the pilot. Now you can see he's quite a nice fit in there. but he looks way too small compared to the reference photos. In those, the pilot's head pretty much fills up the canopy. And so I think Bandai have upped the size of the A-Wing for this 1/72 scale. Because if it was true to scale, then it would probably be even smaller than this. So it's kind of understandable why they did that. But it does make me wonder if they would have been better off making it 1/48 scale instead. Have a correct scale figure and have a slightly bigger model overall. Now for a bit of dry brushing. I've just got the main red colour and lightened it up with a bit of white grey. Dabbed it on the end of a wide flat brush and just wiped away pretty much all of the paint. So I've just got a trace amount left, and then I'm just going to brush over the red sections and sort of fade up the paint a little bit and bring out some of this detail. Now there's just a light amount of chipping on this, according to the reference photos, which kind of makes sense since these were quite new by the time of Return of the Jedi. So I'm just going to keep it quite light, and there's quite a bit of chipping around the canopy frame. And if you just go over with the paint, then because I've put a gloss coat on it, it's quite easy just to wipe away the paint with a bit of water. So no drama there. And I always like to chip up some of the weathering, since it's basically just another paint layer. And on the other real vehicles around the world, you will often see oil stains and rust marks even have chipping in them. So it just adds that little bit of realism to the weathering, I think. Okay, so that's all the chipping, the staining, dry brushing done. And now for the final coat of weathering, which will be a light grey wash in this Vallejo range. So what I like about using this is that it can be manipulated after it dries, just with a bit of water. You can wipe away areas that you think are a bit too dark or whatnot, and it's quite a light finish, and it just sinks into all the recesses, and it'll also give a bit of wear and tear and staining to the large white areas, which I used previously on the Millennium Falcon, which I have a video on, which you can go and check out. So once this is applied, we'll see how it looks. Okay, so I've put on a final coat of Tamiya flat clear and attached the canopy and put it on the stand. So I'm quite happy to call that one finished. And yeah, so it was another really good Bandai kit. Really happy with how it came out. No issues with the build whatsoever. All the parts are perfect fitting, and yeah, so I've got nothing but positive things to say about these Bandai kits. Really impressed. And so let's just have a closer look. So quite happy with how the colour turned out and the subtle weathering that I applied. As you can see, the wash, as it dries, as it's pooling and drying, it leaves these jagged lines around, which kind of matches what you see on the studio model. You have all these areas of paint that look peeled and chipped, so it's quite a nice effect that this wash provides in random areas. And then as it was drying, I just got a brush and then just brushed some of it back to give a few streaks here and there. And yeah, so real simple weathering wash, and I think it's come out really nice. And look at the back there, all these engine components. And on the studio model, all of these inner parts are all coloured yellow. Quick look underneath. So again, it's pretty simple weathering, not much going on under there. Bit of chipping, bit of staining. And I really like the addition of the Death Star tower with its movable guns. And yeah, so really happy with that kit. And let me know what you think of it. And if you have any comments about the build or the video itself, just feel free to leave a comment. And yeah, well, all your likes and even dislikes really help me gauge how well I'm progressing with these builds. And yeah, let me know if you've built this kit yourself, how you got on with it, how you found it. And yeah, so, and just before I finish up, I'd just like to show you this little thing that I've had. Another thing that I've had for about 20 years. This old, I can't even remember what brand it is, but it's a sort of a toy A-Wing from Star Wars Action Fleet. It's got a little figure in the cockpit there. And yeah, so I just thought it would be interesting to compare them. I mean, it's almost exactly the same size as that, but as you can see, it's slightly more crude. And that's not weathering, that's just dust and grime that's built up over the years. I've actually got an X-Wing as well, but those are the only ones that I got. There's quite a few different Star Wars ships in this line. Yeah, the movable cannons there, retractable feet. So yeah, so you can see how far we've come from toys to models. But yeah, so I hope you've enjoyed that video, and thanks for watching. And again, please leave a comment or a like or a dislike. And until next time, take care.